Hi everybody, Ola, and welcome to the new edition of Moons and Mythos with myself, your host, Davyd Farrell, and my co-host, astrologer, mythologist, and my good friend, Kelley Hunter. Hi, Kelley, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
So it's been a pretty, intense period since we last did Moons and Mythos. We've been traversing through Scorpio with eclipses and a whole bunch of stuff coming to the surface. And now we're moving into the new moon in Sagittarius, which is coming up next week, and the full moon in Gemini coming up on December the 7th and 8th. So where do you want to start, Kelley? What have we got to look forward to? What's coming down the pipeline? What are we leaving behind? Because it's been very, very intense, right?
Yes. And I always like the Sagittarius time of year, not only because I am one, but also because it's coming out of the intensity and depth of Scorpio, and the eclipses were huge. And so, let's let it be water going under the bridge now, and it's going to, keep flowing and releasing, but we need to turn our faces forward into the new moon. So shall I bring it up and we can look at it?
Yes, please do. I feel like this is an important new moon, actually, for many reasons.
Here it is. So it's a new moon right here at 1+ Sagittarius, right at the beginning of the sign. And this is a buoyant, fire, optimistic sign. And I think this is one of the kindest, friendliest, most uplifting, new moons of the whole year almost. So it's nice to be feeling that. It's also accompanied by both Venus and Mercury, very close to the new moon. Especially with moon and sun, I give a good 10-degree orb. Some people, ask about that, if they're, even if they're, in this case, they're close together. It's what we call a stellium, when they're, more than two things together. And I love that Venus and Mercury are together, because that's a lovely combination of heart and head. And it is joining the new moon. So the new moon is setting up the whole moon cycle that goes all the way to the next new moon, which is very close to solstice, December solstice. So this is, kind of an indication of like, okay, kind of get your arrow, ready to let that arrow fly. And what is your vision of where you want to be heading? And, aim there, keep your eye, on the sight, on the goal, on your vision, the most beautiful vision you can imagine. There are other things that are also supporting that on this new moon chart, but that is these two personal planets. It's get your heart in the right place with it. What can you imagine? It's the joyful season. So feel that joy, and also keep your mental state in a positive one. Sometimes hard. There's all kinds of craziness going on, and there's going to be a lot more craziness going on. And when we get to the full moon chart, we'll see some of that. But this is a good place to start for a new moon. Get yourself set, toward where you want to be heading. And this is, taking your, I want to say, responsibility even, for having let go of so much, and then, moving forward here. Sagittarius is the horse, it likes to move fast. It's like those wild horses running across the plains, and, Sagittarius loves that. It likes to be on the move. It needs to be physically active. So, don't sit around and moan. This is like, get up and do something, go somewhere, so it's a really lovely new moon combination there.
And, speaking for myself, but probably for many people listening out there, I feel like we need a bit of this energy. It's been intense. The eclipse has been hard going. Finally, we're starting to see some of the disclosures that we would expect to see with this change of energy. We've had all of that difficult South Node in Scorpio, the flushing of the past, of the rich and famous, even some of the procedures that have been outlined over the last period. And now it feels like we've been given this opportunity to take all of that into account, not dwell on it too much, but move forwards with the energy of Haumea in Scorpio, but with this really powerful kind of conjunction, this stellium that, as you say, is uplifting and buoyant. And we can start to set our sights on a different horizon, maybe,
and
not one that's filled with,
move toward it. Yeah, this is, it's a very positive alignment. And it's also, Sagittarius is the sign of the truth and the truth speaker. So like you say, there's some truth that's going to come out, and it might take a little bit because Mars is retrograde over here in Gemini, so it could be a slow rollout, but there is some things being talked about. Sagittarius also has a legal dimension to it, and it also is a storytelling sign. So part of it is like, what is the story that you're living and want to be living? And are you listening to somebody else's story, or are you imagining your own and even rewriting your own story as we move forward here toward the end of this year and into a very big 2023?
Right. And I think this is why we've got Haumea in Scorpio. We've talked a lot in the past before, both on Moons and Mythos and in some of the more dedicated pieces we've been doing for the plant immersions, about the Venus star point that was initiated on the 22nd at the 29 degrees of Libra, with Haumea also conjunct. And I know you did a big piece with Pam, so we won't necessarily go back into
Gregory
too
and
much
I
about
really had fun talking about the Haumea. Yes. And
so definitely recommend
into Scorpio on November 12th, 13th. It's been it was in Libra since about 1992, 93.
Wow,
and so this is the first time it's changed in a while. And it's so interesting that the Venus star point at the very end of Libra, that was a tipping of the scales, and heading into the Scorpio, there's this depth and intensity that hopefully, the washing away with the letting go of Scorpio and with the South Node, still right there for into next year. This allows us to feel something deep inside us, really moving us forward, really like that passion and intensity that is more true to our heart space, being able to guide us in the vision that moves us forward with enthusiasm and inspiration. That's very Sagittarius.
So we've been given this opportunity with this goddess of creation, really, of Scorpio, of death and rebirth. And now we don't necessarily have to be so bogged down in the more nefarious aspects of Scorpio from the past, but we can work with that more creative, transformational rebirth energy with Haumea, with the energy moving into Sagittarius, so that we can start to write a new story and not be burdened by the stories of the past. That's how it feels to me.
We're choosing, this is part of Mars retrograde in Gemini. There are all these options, all these paths we can take. And, what is the truest one for our hearts? These are like, certain timelines that we can be, maneuvering and choosing what pieces we want. Like Gemini gathers all the pieces to the puzzle, and some just don't belong in our puzzle anymore. But Sagittarius is going to take the best pieces, like a collage. You cut out all these things, and then you make a storyboard with all of the things you've cut out that you like, and then you put a collage together, and it makes a story. That's very Sagittarian. It's like the bees gathering nectar from all of the flowers and coming back to the hive to make the honey. That's the interesting dynamic between Mars and Gemini and Sagittarius.
Right, and of
So,
course, you know, you are a Sagittarian, and I also have Venus and Neptune up in Sag, and we were talking about this on another piece we were doing earlier about how sometimes the Sagittarian energy can't always keep up with what we want to express, and but at the same time, and the reason I love doing these shows with you is that we have that same capacity to do the storytelling and to paint the pictures through what comes through, and we've been you know, experimenting, I guess you could say, or even pioneering our way with doing this with the help of the plants through the quantum plant healing stuff that we've been doing. So I like the Sagittarian energy. Yes, I have both Venus and Neptune conjunct up there. I think also probably quite close to your sun. So maybe that's why we're able to do this picture painting so well with the astrology. And that's why I love working with the astrology, because it's all about the gestalts that we can see for ourselves and how is it painting our picture, right?
Yeah, just a couple of little notes. You know, I should think horsetail would be very Sagittarian, and also silica is, and it's an arrow-shaped molecule or something like that. I forget. Sometimes I forget the facts, but I've got the bigger picture. You know,
I know the feeling.
because it's grabbed me. You know, it's like, yeah, this is it. I got that. So, and then sometimes that's all you can take with you if you're galloping along, you know, on a horse. You can't carry a whole lot. You know?
Right,
Just
right. I like that.
Whatever's inspiring, and imagery is very big for Sagittarius. Like images speak, like a picture is worth 1,000 words sort of thing, they say.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got this whole storytelling aspect. We've got this whole kind of two truths, one truth with Mars in Gemini. But what else do we have going on this new moon that sets the scene for how we want to direct our prayers, so that when we get to the full moon in Gemini, how is that going to look for us? I feel this is a very important.
The full moon is full of dynamics. But and that's why getting set, you know, getting our arrow pointing to where we want to head and keeping that vision in mind and heart. So there's some support here. Look, Chiron in Aries, you know, fire sign to fire sign. That's a very positive, like, yes, because Chiron in Aries is new. It's like we're heading out on a new trail. It's unprecedented. No one's ever been on this trail before. Where will it lead us? It's like the Star Trek motto, to go where no one has gone before, you know, kind of thing. And that's the Chiron in Aries. And so it's saying, yes, follow those impulses, you know, follow where your heart wants to take you. And it's most closely aligned with the Mercury and Venus. So as the sun moves toward that area, you know, as we get further toward the full moon, that is going to kind of increase its that Aries sense of like, just do it, you know. This is like, to me, Chiron is the be here now, you know, aligning spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And we've already got the heart and the head here. So let's add in the whole ball of wax and take it from there. Now, another combination. Did you want to say something about that?
No, please go ahead, Kelly. I was just reflecting on some things, but go ahead.
I think, you know, in terms of the vision, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and here is Jupiter. You know, it's gone retrograde into Pisces again for just a couple of months, from the end of October to close to the end of December, and it's vibing with Neptune again. So if we want to give a real pithy, you know, meaning to this, Jupiter is big and Neptune is dream. So this is stimulating the collective dream again, which is our collective vision. And it is also like a kind of vibrational, like it's a wash of grace. It's like we had the Jupiter Neptune conjunction on April 12th, and this is just another wave coming through of compassion and love and grace and blessings. And we just need to be open to receive that. This is, don't have too many preconceptions, and analyze your beliefs. You know, beliefs, you know, you believe in something. It may or may not be true. Sagittarius is looking for the truth and what you know, and you know because you like, it's like a bell that rings in your heart. and it's just like, I know it's true. Now, sometimes this Gemini is going to like question that and second guess it and say, how do you know it's true? And Sagittarius is because I feel it. And it's not feeling in a watery sense. It's a knowing, more of a knowing that, you know, something in you has responded to that. And it's like, I know it's true. I know this is my path. I know that's my truth. I know that's where I'm going. So, you know, listen to those impulses. They can be really turned on in this new moon cycle.
And I know we talked about this in another piece that we did for the Arrow immersion, but it's worth reiterating here. This difference between believing and knowing. Believing something maybe that somebody else has told you, but knowing it as a truth in yourself is a whole different ball game. And maybe where we have that more impulse Aries, but with Chiron, where maybe we dive into things and don't think about the consequences so much until they hit us in the face or whatever happens afterwards. But if we have that energy of Sagittarius or knowing, we can start to be more discerning with that energy of Gemini of two truths. Which one do I believe? Which one do I know? Then we're starting to get this newer sensation of like, what do I know to be my truth? Because that's really in the end the only thing that matters. And if that truth is in direct opposition to everybody else, well then maybe you need to have a little reflection on that. But in the end, it also doesn't matter. If it's the truth that works for you, it's the truth that works for you. And then, you know, if you do find yourself in opposition to many people, then you'll have to deal with that. But I would dare to suggest that many of us on this path over the last few years have found ourselves often at loggerheads with the masses, with the media, or any of these things, and we've had to stand our ground and stand our truth, knowing that the visions that we've had of New Earth from our hearts for a long time, probably for many of us, are now about to manifest, and we've had to hold the line. But that's also required discernment and not getting pulled too much into multiple narratives,
which can be so easy with this extended Gemini energy. It can be very distracting and very confusing. Neptune adds to the confusion. Neptune is squaring Mars. It's like, what am I doing? What's happening here? What's going on? Who's saying what? What's really true? Reality has a fluidity to it that can be disconcerting if we aren't clear on our path forward. And that's the big key to this new moon. So, you know, beliefs are initially kind of culturally imposed. You know, there's cultural dynamics, you know, religious beliefs, there's, you know, but you know, that there's a little iffiness in that because it's not coming from inside you as a response to your life and experience.
I agree.
So this is that truer self, and yes, you may be seeing yourself differently as some of these old belief systems are sort of being undermined or dissolved, and things become more crystal clear.
Right. So,
well,
I think that's very important. Go on.
And this new birthing power of Scorpio that also comes from the inside out can really motivate, you know, this new cycle as well. And it is a whole new cycle. She does pop back into Libra for a little bit in sometime next year. I forget exactly when, but anyway, I think that's a nice, like, she birthed herself from the eclipses.
Right, that also, you know, is interesting and true. But before we move on to the film, I just want to ask one question. So with Jupiter and Neptune in retrograde, is there a point where they become direct conjunct again, or do they kind of have a dance for a while?
Jupiter is actually turning forward on the full moon that we're going to talk about. So it's and it's back in Aries by somewhere around Christmas time. You know, Neptune doesn't turn it turns forward just before. Yes, you're right. They do turn forward within a couple of days of each other. Oh, I hadn't noticed that. And, you know, Neptune could be a bit elusive, like I wasn't paying attention.
I actually find Neptune is probably the hardest of all of the planets to understand because of its deeply watery nature, and it's kind of hard to pin. It feels like the energy of an eclipse, to be honest, to me.
Hey, wait a minute, Davyd, I was wrong. It's Neptune. So So Jupiter turns forward like right after this new moon, right? Like tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
After
Okay.
the tomorrow of this new moon.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
I was thinking it's the full moon, but no, I was looking at them both together. I hadn't, instead of one and then the other, because I write new moon and full moon things, looking at them together is giving me another kind of perspective on things. So I'm getting a little mixed up, and I'm misspeaking a bit. And I think that's part of Mars being in Gemini, not putting the right things together exactly.
Well, the current energy spectrum that we've been experiencing here in the earthly planes has been a bit like that. And certainly speaking from experience, this is, the third time we attempted to do this call, right, this week. We had to deal with a lot of energetic interference that, for me personally, energetically was part of a bigger picture of distortion and fragmentation that was coming not necessarily from my own space, but definitely from the wider collective or external spaces. And without wanting to go too much into rabbit holes, for sure, there has been a lot of energetic interference that has made it difficult sometimes to keep coherent thoughts together. So just if any of our listeners have been experiencing that kind of fragmentation around the third eye or crown or even the throat chakra, it's partly what's going on, and we can see it illustrated in the astrology. But I would also like to suggest that level of interference is coming to an end soon. So I think that's also important.
Yeah, we're being bombarded with things coming in from all angles. We're going to talk about that more on the full moon, but also I think of Gemini sometimes as one of those old time switchboard operators. They have their thing on and they have all of these things and they're plugging them in. And this is like the switchboard's going a little crazy here, with Mars retrograde in Scorpio, and things are getting, replugged from where we started out, and lines can cross, and, you get a party line and who am I talking to here?
Right. Definitely, it feels a bit like maybe the operators had like maybe one day in the office too many, or maybe needs to have a break, and they're like, mind has gone so much, and they pulled out a wire. It's like, where was this going? I don't know. Let's stick it in here and see what happens. No, that was the wrong one.
Why not? Chiron and Aries would go with that. Yeah, I should just try it, see what happens.
Right, so that can lead to amusement, but it can also lead to some more dramatic situations if we get the wires too badly crossed. So is there any energy in the chart that you see here on this new moon? Again, I would suggest probably the whole Sagittarian piece that allows us to circumnavigate the more jittery aspects maybe of Mars in Gemini, which can perhaps get a little...
Okay. I think let's get into the full moon to look at that, okay? Because what we've got here is Sagittarius, opposite Gemini, two of the mutable signs. And then we have Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, which is another mutable sign. So if we go to Virgo, that's the fourth mutable sign, and we're going to see more of that Virgo activity in the full moon, because we're going to look at some other patterns coming in from the Kuiper Belt. So, because there's not a lot of Earth in this chart, of the new, there's Pluto in Capricorn, of course, and Uranus in Taurus, of course, but, we need more groundedness. You can't be galloping on your horse, without having a rest, or, you need to come back to your body, basically, is what I'm saying. And herbs can help with that too. Virgo. So,
and even just the horse scenario, a horse needs to be fed and watered at various points along the path. Otherwise, he's going to, get tired, or even worse, maybe perish.
And the rider does too. If you want to stay in that saddle, you gotta be, you got to take care of the whole unit, the horse and the rider. And, Sagittarius can be the horse and the rider, or you can combine them into the centaur. But there is another centaur in the sky, and I think that one is Chiron. So all right, let's look at the full moon, get a little different picture here.
Quite a different picture, really.
Yes. So this is a different chart form. This comes from astro.com, the Astrodynst website, on which I can get all the KBOs I want, except you can only do 12 of them at once. So
You do like I did, and you put all of them, and there's so much
Oh,
going on in the
yes,
chart
I
that you feel like you've just
know.
had a head explosion.
Yes. Oh, goodness. Yes. It's a big roster. It's like a whole new realm of astrology, and it can be a little too much. And I'm going to try to break this down enough so everybody can follow, because there's a lot of Kuiper Belt activity here. And
Okay, let's get into it.
so here we see now the full moon is late at night in Eastern time. So many people will experience the full moon on the 8th. I experience it on the 7th. And I'm gonna share that it's my birthday.
Happy birthday in advance. I'm sure that that you will be going through an interesting solar return at this time, Kelley. It's I feel like actually it's a rebirth almost, this solar return. It's the timing of it's beautiful, really.
A solar return is a kind of rebirth. It's like, it's like the solar return is when the sun comes back to the exact same degree and minute as when you were born. So sometimes it's the day before or after your official birthday, but it's kind of like taking the transits and saying, stop the clock. This is a chart for your solar return, and you can look at this in relation to the whole coming year. So it's not every year that you would have your birthday on a new or full moon or some other major astrological event like an eclipse, and so it can have indications. So here's the sun at 1602 Sagittarius, and here is the moon at 1602 Gemini. So that's the full moon. And we're getting a lot of dynamics. We still have Venus in Sagittarius, which we just saw on the new moon. And look, 2 weeks later, things have moved quite a bit. Mercury and Venus are close to the sun and the earth, and they move pretty fast. Mercury's already moved into Capricorn. So that is interesting to note on the full moon. We were just saying that here's Jupiter. It's turned forward now. Neptune has turned forward also. So that is another change with during the waxing moon. And
so hold on, if I'm reading this correctly, Jupiter is going to be conjunct Manway at 29 degrees of Pisces on the full moon.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Now they have been conjunct each other even at 0 degrees not too long ago. But this is a really interesting combination. As we said, about the new moon, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, so it has a lot to say about this moon cycle, and being conjunct Neptune, close enough to say they're definitely reverberating, and they're remembering that they were conjunct a few months ago with this, kind of wave of energy. Now, Manway is one of the really interesting Kuiper Belt objects, which are largely named for indigenous creator gods. Now, Manway and this other one down here, Varda, are two of the main mythic characters in Tolkien's prehistory of Middle Earth. And Manway and Varda were both like the two of the highest archangels in the choir of angels singing around, the throne of creator. And this is the Tolkien's creator story. So Manway was the chief of the archangels. Like, I don't know if like that is the equivalent of Michael. I don't think, the archangel Michael, I don't think they are exactly the same, but the Jupiter wisdom aspect, especially in Pisces, which can at best be a spiritual sign, is very aligned with Manway, who was the chief of these of the 14, they called them Valar. I like that, valiant, Valar, who are the ones that were so inspired by the creator's vision that it had been ignited by the choir of angels and the voices of the angels, that they went down to see Earth and realized they had to create that vision. So the original creator energy, and Manway was closest to the mind of God, and and always remembers the original vision, the original codes, the original blueprint. And I really feel, especially as Manwe is circling the 0 Aries point, that it's really bringing back those original codes, that original vision of how this is supposed to be, our planet is supposed to be. So Jupiter and Manwe are amplifying. That's one of my favorite Jupiter words, amplify, makes bigger, expands, opens up this vision for whoever wants to tune into it.
Right. I just want to share, actually, I've been watching the new Tolkien series, or that's based on Tolkien's writings, called The Rings of Power, which is very much about the more prehistory of Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And I was watching an episode last night that featured Manwe, and also how it's connected to what we would consider Yggdrasil, or the tree, the toroidal field that is the tree. So if anyone hasn't watched that and is interested, definitely recommend watching that series. It's very good. It's very prehistory.
Yeah, this goes eras back.
On the channel,
there was a huge original era, and then the Melkor, the fallen satanic angel, destroyed it all because he could not create. And he was so jealous that he couldn't create, that he would just instead destroy. This is really relevant to our times, I feel. And so then there would be a new creation. That had a new era, I would say, that had a different, it was the next iteration. And
we can say epoch or era even.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, these are before time, so it's hard to say how long they last, although there are dates that Tolkien gave, and then that one was also destroyed. And so there was a new era emerged. And I think the third one was when the elves woke up. And then after the era of the elves, the human era. So there's so many storylines in that. So how they made a TV series out of it is like, wow, that
good. It's very clever. And for those people who don't know Tolkien so well, he wrote much of his interpretation of how the world was created through the writings in the Silmarillion, which is not always an easy read. But once you've actually progressed a little bit on the spiritual path, the Silmarillion is actually an incredibly beautiful read that shows you how Tolkien understood the creation of the realms, of the beings, not necessarily from a galactic point of view, but more from an Earth-centric point of view, but still very much connected to the stars. And, the idea of the Valar is very much linked to Norse traditions, the 9 realms of Yggdrasil, how the elves came from within the inner earth, but also came from the stars. And in fact, that's what the piece was yesterday, was about how Manwe fought the Balrog, which could be Melchior, you could see that, and created the tree and put the light down into the earth that is the light of the Eldar, which is what keeps the elves from dying. And so anyway, lots and lots and lots of juice in Tolkien if you have the time to read the Silmarillion, because it's quite a big book. But so we have this energy of Manwe, but tell us a little bit more about Varda and how that links to the energy of Manwe.
So Manwe and Varda were, a pair. And Varda was like the head, the feminine head of the Valar. Head is not the right word. And she was beloved by the elves because she's put the stars in the sky to welcome them to their realm. And she exuded the light of the creator, the love light. So she was incredibly radiant, like pure white light. So she was the light bringer. She created the stars, and in each era, she created another form of light. One was the tree, the 2 trees, actually. There was a tree of gold and a tree of silver. And those were destroyed. And in the next era, she and the Earth Mother goddess helped get 1 fruit and 1 flower from the tree of gold and silver, and made the sun and the moon, and Varda put them in the sky.
Beautiful.
So she made light. She made the light for each era. So Varda is at 25 Sagittarius. Now in the Do you remember in December 2020, there was a total solar eclipse at 23 degrees of Sagittarius a week before Jupiter and Saturn went into Aquarius together on solstice. That was quite a week. And at that 23 degrees, Varda was also at 23 degrees. So she came right in through that total solar eclipse. And she's moved into 25, and she's soon going to align with the galactic center at 26 Sagittarius. So she's bringing in the light from the center of the galaxy, we could say. Now, since they were, they've all these Kuiper Belt objects have only been discovered since the new millennium. So, and since that time, Varda and Manwe have been squared. And so, squares are challenging, they can be conflictual, but this square is, we're doing this thing, we're doing it together. It's like happening. It's not a conjunction. They're playing off each other's creativity. And when they were together, which they were most of the time living in the top of this castle on top of the highest mountain, she could hear really far. And he could see really far and would get news from all the eagles. And so Varda was the light bringer, Varda Alantari, the star kindler. And so she came through that eclipse 2 years ago and is close enough to the sun. But the real reason I put her in here is because she is conjunct Venus.
Right.
And Venus, they're like on either side of the galactic center.
Wow.
So this is a very strong fire, light, vision energy, basically coming from the center of the galaxy and picking up on that eclipse that happened on December 14th, 2020. So there's Manwe and Varda. Manwe is already moving into Aries, and it's going to be a few years before Varda moves into Capricorn. But I think that's just a lovely, it's not the Venus star point, where Venus was conjunct the sun and Haumea, but this is another, creator goddess bringing light to Venus, the divine feminine energy, lighting up in a different way.
So it's interesting from what I can see here that we've also got a conjunction here with Mercury, Ixion, and Quawa, which is also basically creating a whole stellium there, right? From Varda across to Quawa. And so, as we know, Ixion is also very destructive energy. So this speaks to me again of just emerging from the Scorpio season with the path of the heart, but also this need for Ixion to perhaps break down. We, as humans, we have a tendency to think that death and destruction is something bad. But if we look outside in Mother Nature, we go through this cycle every year. The winter season is death and decay, because then in the spring, something new can emerge. So rather than be afraid of the collapse of the old, whatever that may be, I see that what we've got here is this beautiful balancing, right? Of the potentiality of the fire, the light, the vision of Venus and Varda, but then also the communication with Mercury of the collapse initiated by Ixion at, what is that, 2 degrees of Capricorn?
Yes, it should be 211. So Mercury at 152, we're getting the degrees and minutes right in there, is actually previewing the new moon, the next new moon, which is going to be on December 23rd at 1:33. So it's basically so close to solstice. And so that's previewing that. And, it's like the solstice energy is like one of the turning points, and also why the 2012 moment was so important is because the solstice, the December solstice, was in alignment with the galactic center, and that hadn't happened. Well, it would have been the summer, the June solstice about, 1,200 years ago. And this has been a long time. It's a new era, not unlike the ones that Varda and Manwë, kind of help recreate. And so Ixion I don't like Ixion either. I was like, I don't want to even think about Ixion. So I didn't for quite a while. And at one point, I forget why, I had to think about Ixion. So, he was just kind of, he killed his father-in-law. He was being punished by exile. He was a king. Jupiter said, look, come up here and let's talk, and, where are you at? So he was going to give him a second chance. And Ixion tried to seduce Jupiter's wife, Juno.
Guy's unrelenting.
This guy, So then he got chained to a wheel that goes round and round in the underworld, having to keep repeating, give gratitude to your benefactor. So basically, I'm thinking about Ixion as being the wheel of karma. And are you making the same mistakes again? So it's kind of like a test. Have you let go enough through those eclipses with the South Node in Scorpio? Have you looked at that shadow well enough and let all that go? Or are you going to repeat the wheel of karma? And this is like a question. It's like Mercury's asking that question. How, in Capricorn at the December solstice point. Okay, what's this new year about for you? Are you going to repeat the same mistakes? And then we get Quawar, which is saying, here's a way you can deal with some of that. Sing and dance, celebrate, create something new, like bring it all in, kind of honor the earth. It's a joy to the world, with a creator energy that creates by singing and dancing, by that joy, by that, dancing it in kind of thing. So that combination is intriguing, I think, but, it's really appropriate for a new year energy too. Ixion is only in Capricorn for a year or maybe two.
So I'm thinking, with this Ixion energy, which of course is not one that we like to contemplate too much because it doesn't seem to have so much positivity behind it, but it is very much necessary. I feel if we think about the new moon and the prayers that we're making, if we haven't made them clearly, when we come to the full moon, we're going to see pretty quickly whether we have made a good choice or not, and whether we are dancing and singing in the new earth, or whether we are somewhat getting pulled down with the old paradigm. And I love the idea of the fifth or the sixth sun. Many of the indigenous cultures in the Mesoamerican traditions talk about this being the time of the fifth or the sixth sun, depending on which culture you look into. And again, that speaks to me of what you just talked about with the collapse of, in the sort of the more Tolkien-esque world of the old epochs and the old civilizations. And very much, if you follow the Lord of the Rings, you will see that there are inserted many different previous civilizations that have come and gone, because they see all the great statues and the ruins of the towers, and they speak to speak to us of an age that has gone before. And
with
still
giants and so much of that is coming out lately, and so much talk of Lemuria and Atlantis and all these previous eras. So there's this, this Mercury with this question: are you going to repeat the old stuff? And I had a thought and it's just escaped me. So
Uranus.
So the thing is, so you need to live by your truth. What is true for you? And how are you moving forward into the new vision? Or are you like not on the wagon, not on the wagon train, heading wherever we're heading, the Starship Enterprise, are you going to jump on or not? So, and we can get very distracted with this whole pattern. The moon in Gemini, it's like conjunct Mars so closely, retrograde.
Tell us a bit more about this thing, Kelley, and also you've got another KBO in there, which is pretty.
So this is, the moon is what do you need, and Mars is what do you want. Are they aligned? And which is not always true. That famous song, you don't always get what you want, you get what you need. can you align them in a positive way, to move forward with? And this is also like, are you getting distracted? Are you spinning your wheels? Are you, there's so much going on. It's like you look here, you look there, it's like something else, it's like a carnival with all these different rides and all these different sideshows. And it's like you can get so distracted. So this go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to interject, Kelley. Something's just come to me. So I had an experience a little while back of an alignment between what I wanted and what I needed becoming the same things. For the first time in my life, what I wanted and what I needed were the same thing. Yes. And we were talking earlier before about these conjunction days where true Black Moon Lilith and mean Black Moon Lilith come together. And they actually come together in that conjunction day on the full moon, which speaks to me of what do I want and what do I need, and can they be harmonized into a place of alignment?
Yes, and we were talking about Lilith and the two positions of Lilith, the mean black moon that is measured by its on forward motion through the zodiac, its average forward motion.
And then the true is where it actually is backwards and forwards, which can be wild, right?
So there's one time a month that they get together, and that is this full moon. And they get together, it's at 26 to 27 of Cancer. So I can't always put two things together in the chart, but
no, it's tricky with this one. But for those people who
it's very close to opposite Pluto. Over here, it is opposite Pluto.
It is opposite Pluto.
Wow. So, yeah, that's a pretty intense opposition. Oof. Because what you need can come from unresolved early childhood impressions. So the Black Moon is saying that's your ego self. What does your soul self need? It's like this overarching of the Holy Mother saying, I will give you what you want, but you could get in trouble if it's not what your soul really needs. So it's a soul desire, a need of like almost like what is like kind of meant to happen. And it's like not just a personal thing, it's a collective thing. And so if we're all doing our own work and also can receive, because Cancer's not always open. It's like, nope, I'm shut. It's like, I'm not, I'm too vulnerable. And it's like, we don't always get what we need from other people, but we always get what we need from here when we're receptive to receiving, which can be a problem for Cancer. It's more of a giver. It's safer to be a giver than a receiver. So if we can receive all these blessings washing in from this Pisces conjunction that includes Manwë, then we're good. It's going to be beautiful, and it's going to contribute so much to the collective shift that we're in the middle of here.
Wow, booyaka, baby. It's all coming down the road. This is what we've been waiting for, all of this beautiful energy to work with. And I think that's, just for our audience who maybe haven't seen, me and Kelley did a piece a little while back for the Artemisia emotion, where we really go into the energies of Black Moon Lilith, which is when we realized for the first time about these alignment days.
Yes, I hadn't even clicked in that. I knew that I didn't even think of looking for when they get together, and didn't realize it would be once a month.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost the best way I think of it is it's like I wouldn't say a vortex, but it's like a hidden portal, maybe we could say.
It's twice a month this year, Davyd. It is a month this year. There's another one on the 19th of December.
Oof.
And that one's at 27 to 28. I'm going to have to do a little more looking at this. You'd think after all the years I've been looking into Black Moon Lilith, I would have figured this out before. But when the time is right, it happens, when the need arises in this case, right? So that is very interesting. So here we are, we get a double take. And so, yeah, that's a very powerful, my goodness. That
Wow.
is like the need of the hour, so to speak, is pressing, let us say,
Mm,
to be
mhm.
receptive to these energies. We just have to ask. Capricorn, like, I can handle it. I'm going to be good. I'm capable. And it's like at a certain point, we need help, and we need help now, don't we? We really need to ask for guidance from our higher selves, to let our soul click in to that energy in a way that's so true to who we are and what we are here for.
Right.
It's amazing time.
And just to reiterate again, the new moon is the time to make those prayers with our arrow from Sagittarius to set. Do not allow yourself to receive blockages from other people, other situations, other narratives, because when we get to this full moon, if we've had trust and faith and alignment and all of those things that really allow us to open our hearts, then we have all of this beautiful magic,
Yes.
really to help illuminate those prayers that we had. And so in that dark space, sometimes between the new moon and the full moon, it's easy to lose faith, not see the things, think that you wanted to, or expected to see arise. But by the time we get to the full moon and after that, if we've stayed aligned, if our arrow has been shot true, then we have the support, right, to really kick on into the solstice period. And I think most importantly this year, 25th of December, the return of the light. I think that's so symbolic this year. I mean, it is
Yeah.
every year. But if this year it feels like, wow, we really can start to believe that we're going to turn a corner from the solstice onwards. We have that beautiful 3 days of stillness. And, if you ever really tune into that energy, you can feel in the astrals when it goes still, because it's not actually first thing in the morning. The actual solstice conjunction sometimes takes place late in the morning or early afternoon. And for the last 2 or 3 years, I felt the energy drop to a place of like, oof, almost like a flat line. And then it comes back on the 25th. So I feel like this is the preview for that. But I did interrupt you, Kelley. Was there anything else you wanted to say around that conjunction with the moon and with Mars up there in Gemini?
Well, yeah, I just want to say in a different way what you just said, that the new moon is that setting of intention. It's in the dark, and it's like a seed, and it's like the blossoming and the revelation, the illumination is the full moon. And then when the moon is waning, we are incorporating that into living that illumination. Now, so this, we have a helper up here, and this is Altgira, Altjiri, Altjiri, Altgira. It's an Aboriginal creator god. Who came from the big dreaming, and we are in the big dreaming over here with Jupiter, Neptune, Manway. And so in order to kind of, be able to stay down here, took on emu feet and created it all, like probably created the song lines, created, whatever, everything, and then left it to the ancestors and went it back up into the great dreaming. Altgira has a moon that's called Altgira 2. And actually, they aren't always moons, they're companion objects, because they're all very small. So, it's like twins, especially in Gemini. Here we are in Gemini, right? So there's this, variety is the spice of life theme in Gemini. And, sometimes that can go a little too far, but the Mars retrograde is giving us plenty of time. It's working with Altgira, this creator god, to bring in options, to bring in other, sometimes just subtle differentials that are going to make a big difference. So it's also keeping attention, keeping your energy aligned with what is coming into creation and what you want to create. And if something's happening and this is not what I want, no, don't go there. It's not your only option. We got plenty of options coming up for quite a while here with Mars retrograde into January, and still in Gemini almost to the end of March of next year. So Algira, I'm saying this now because I think realized it more fully, that the energy of these particular Kuiper Belt objects and deities from indigenous, peoples all over the world, I think some of their meaning comes from that people and from that land. So, there's some new information that is suggesting that Australia might have been the cradle of humanity. But we,
even
as an option, that's interesting.
And even though Manwë and Vada are technically deities or beings from a fictional account, Tolkien really was channeling very much the indigenous energy of the elven otherworld from the British Isles. And so much of what he wrote really was just his own interpretation of what we can read about in the Celtic and Norse tradition. So even though they are fictional characters, they still feel very present and relevant, as indeed do characters like Gandalf, who very much is a Merlin kind of a character too, So so that's really cool. And we have one more over here on the left that's been grinning at me since the beginning, because I find
that's going to bring it kind of full circle, but I do want to just bring anybody's attention who hasn't noticed the graphic back here. This is my version of Varda. Yeah, this is Varda. She's she's singing into the ether and making bubbles that become stars because they light up through her heart energy.
Maybe we can share that image somehow at the end of the video too, Kelley.
Okay, let me just take it down for a minute and
okay.
Now.
Oh yeah, okay. So, but yeah, that's from your coloring book too, I believe, right?
Yes. Yeah, I had fun doing that one. So anyway, yes, we had, and this is a big one. This is Orcus over here in Virgo. Remember, we were talking about we need the Virgo to really bring the energy of this together, because when you get a three-pointed pattern called a T-square, you need it. A lot of the energy goes into fulfilling this fourth corner. So Orcus is at 15 of Virgo, and it is very much like Pluto, and it's about the same distance out at the front edge of the Kuiper Belt. And Orcus is an Etruscan god of the underworld. That's an ancient culture from Italy. A lot of Etruscan, kind of things there. So Orcus is like some of the others. He punishes those who are not keeping their sacred oaths. And Melanie Reinhardt came up with that theme. She kind of evoked, she's very good at researching, and she sort of found that. So there's a whole theme that is going on right now about oaths and agreements. And say what?
Even deals, karmic deals, contracts, soul contracts, maybe even deals to get yourself out of a bit of a predicament that you got yourself into because you were maybe being a bit too much like Ixion or one of these not so good characters, right?
Yes, and if you break that, but anyway, some of these we are carrying deep down where Scorpio lives, way down, I say, from past lives, from ancestry, from the collective. We've had, for thousands of years, we have a collective agreement about what is reality. And we've been in a certain kind of almost like matrix of a reality for quite a while. So Orcus is coming up as a question. Are certain agreements, certain oaths, certain contracts still viable or relevant or appropriate for where we're at now and how we're going into a new era, a big new era? Like, when the elves came in, it was a new era. So Orcus is saying we need to break some of these contracts or these oaths or agreements that are not in alignment with this, with the vision of moving forward and allowing our souls the freedom, which Sagittarius is a freedom-loving sign, to be able to move forward. You know, there's things binding us or holding us back, and what are those? And can we break those bindings? You know, and is it time? And part of this in Virgo here, this is Earth's agreements and contracts. Earth as a living Gaia, you know, this is also our bodies, you know, how we hold things in our bodies from past lives and, you know, ancestral stuff. So we're really, you know, allowed here. These are all mutable signs. They're changeable, they shift, they're adaptable, they're flexible. And Virgo is like the harvest. It's like, all right, you've done that. You don't have to keep doing it. And it goes along with Ixion in the way that you don't have to repeat this wheel of karma. Let's let it go. You know, you fulfilled it so that you can let it go on whatever level you're bound. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And just a few thoughts coming into my mind as you're saying all of this. So again, if we look at the agreements of the past, what agreements did we make with Mother Earth? And are we going to repeat those same mistakes again if we didn't abide by those agreements? Ixion down at 2 degrees of Capricorn. And also Virgo is very much about details, right? And so looking at the details, the small print of our soul contracts, because what we often see more in the quantum work that I do is that we can have a resonance going on in this time space continuum that is actually being triggered by what seems like a past life, but is actually a parallel dimension on the spiral, which seems like it's in the linear past. And often those small details can actually be still resonating in quite a large way here and now, and often with people who are still in our lives, but maybe in a different dynamic from the one where we had the original issue or trauma with. Which I think is interesting. But also I'm just looking to see that Orcus is in a aspect with the North Node and Uranus up in Taurus too, right?
Yes, and it's Earth to Earth. So this is a time where we can free ourselves of those contracts and, you know, the places we hold in our bodies. And I think this speaks to your work, Davyd, the quantum plant healing, you know, that as every living being on Earth is evolving, including the plants. And as you said, you know, as they're evolving, they're helping us evolve also. And this is a beautiful soul contract, if you want to look at it that way.
Right. You know, and even if we haven't made those soul contracts that maybe people like myself and other plant people have in the past, which is why we're able to do this work now. Now is an opportunity when you can write in that soul
agreement. Absolutely,
right.
Yes.
And if we do it in alignment with Mother Earth and with the North Node and Uranus up in Taurus, we are aligning with the future that Mother Earth is already setting herself on. So then we don't make the previous mistakes of the past where we find ourselves in opposition to the natural cycle because we've been pulled out of our heart spaces, pulled out of that natural connection that humans have with nature. We are part of nature, even though there are many forces that might try to convince us otherwise. So this is, I think, a big opportunity to review even the soul contracts of the past, check out the small details. Have we finished those? Great. If we have, what's next? Let's make a new soul contract, maybe in conjunction with Mother Earth.
Yes, right? And help sing and dance some new creativity from the Earth herself to come forward.
Right.
And here's one more we need to look at. This is Tehran Waco. Deharon dash HI apostrophe. No, I did it wrong.
There's going to be difficult because it's a tricky one.
Tehran Hayawako. Kind of like Hiawatha, because it's from the Iroquois Nation in the Northeast US and heading into Canada. And this is right here, you know, with Neptune and in the whole Grand Cross here of things, and certainly squaring the new moon. So Teronwako, his mother was pregnant with him and his twin brother, who was the evil twin. And the father threw the mother down through a hole in the sky where the tree had been uprooted in the last world. And he threw down all these things. And then the mother. And so the mother was caught by birds and brought to lay comfortably on the back of a turtle. So nice. Turtle Island. And the twins were born because Sawiskara was tired of it, and he just made his way out and came out through her armpit, and she died. And the grandmother blamed Teronwako because the evil twin said he did it. And so Teronwako was the spiritually aware and could see all of these things from the old world that were in the ether, and he would bring them into creation, and he created everything. And Sawiskara, kind of like the Tolkien Melkor, was like so jealous. He would try to create something. He would create like thorns, or he would create like gnats, or and Teronwako would like, well, we could use that. Yeah, we could use that. Incredibly compassionate, but he said, look, I think I'm gonna separate. You live there, I'll live here, kind of thing. Right. So he created plants and then the people using, like, making them alive with his breath, because he had the spirit in his breath and he could give life. And Sawiskara could not do that. Wow. So this was just beautiful. And in the creation story that goes, it's like the whole history of the peoples. And they make up the Iroquois nation has, it's 6 nations making up the larger,
Confederacy.
Yes. And that was their Confederacy and the laws of their Confederacy were influential with the founding fathers in the United States. That's one interesting thing to know. But also at a certain point, the different nations started warring, and that was against their contract. That was against the creation. And so Teronwako like incarnated himself as who is known as the peacemaker, who would walk through all of the nations and talk to the peoples and create peace among them again.
Wow. I think this is a really beautiful spot to end on, this grand cross that we have, as we've taken this pretty extensive walk around the full moon energies. And I feel like what we're again getting here is in opposition to AUKUS, but with all of the other aspects too, is this choice point. Do we choose to always be in a place of compassion? Do we always choose to see the higher note in everything? We can even turn the fawns into something beneficial. We can turn the gnats and the mosquitoes into something beneficial. Or do we go more towards the kind of the dark side and allow ourselves to get pulled down, or even not pulled down, but going away with the old energies of the world? Because there are very two clear choice points, as we've talked about repeatedly, and many astrologers have over the last few years, about which way are we going to go. Are we going to go more towards the grassroots up connection to nature, Taurus, or are we going to go more towards a technological, fear-based, paranoia, anxious world that is one of control and manipulation and destruction? And I would dare to suggest that the likelihood of the former now is much, much stronger, and is in many more people's awareness now than it has been for a while. And maybe for the first time this week, many of us are seeing actual light at the end of the tunnel and allowing us to move into this new moon, full moon
keeping that light
process.
in mind is going to forward it also. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's so important.
Say again.
Sagittarius can have a very dark side. It can be very self-righteous. I know what not I know what I know, but this is what you need to believe. And if you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to have to kill you, kind of thing,
Well, that's been a big motif of the energy throughout the last couple of years. And I feel that with this Grand Cross, we're coming to the conclusion of that piece. And, maybe all of these energies of like, you know, it's my way or the highway, I'm right, you're wrong. It's like, well, now we're coming to a review process, and we saw all the planets in retrograde on the new moon, and maybe many beings on the planet are being forced to reevaluate what their truth actually was and whether it was correct or not. And is that in alignment with their agreements with themselves, with others, with Mother Earth? Or are we going to allow ourselves to descend into a place of destruction and chaos? Because that's where we're at right now. So it's always choice, you know, and this is why I love the astrology. There's the higher notes and there's the more mundane notes, and we always have a choice which one we want to align ourselves with, right? And it seems to me this Grand Cross is totally about alignment and how we're aligning with our own destiny, our own hearts, our own soul trajectory, all of these things, and so that we can come to a place of clarity and harmony for those new moon prayers that we put out on the 7th and 8th on the 27th. No, so when is the new moon?
23rd of November.
23rd of November. So that
meshing together, you know. And also, can we listen to other people? There's Gemini, open-minded. Like, what do you think? What's going on with you? And, you know, and also speaking one's own truth from a clear place when it's the right time, you know, like, you know, have to put it in somebody's face. And Mars is retrograde, saying like, you know, just think a bit before you speak, you know, because Sagittarius can be very like foot in mouth, you know. It's like, oh my God, I just blurted that out. That might not be a very good idea.
Well, you know, this is why we've been engaging with the process with the plant called yarrow, Accolea millefolium, because it's really about conscious language, the throat chakra, and many things. So you can find out more about that on the Quantum Plant Healing website. But let's bring the screen down, Kelley, for the last few minutes and just wrap up this very deep and extensive round that we've done today. We always do this. We say, well, we're just going to keep it to a certain length, and then we get into it and more comes through. So hopefully our viewers and listeners have enjoyed this extensive.
Do it in 2 times, you know, like take a break and come back. But
but it's so important, and I think that's why we've ended up spending so much time on the full moon energy, because as we can see with all of these KBOs, we're being offered now the nuanced details that the Orcus in Virgo offers us to look at all of the bits and pieces of our soul contracts, so that when this epoch finally comes down, which I would dare to suggest is really winter solstice, that's how it feels energetically to me, that when that process happens, we're in that beautiful space, having made the most of this wonderful new moon, full moon cycle that we have, with the support, with all of these creator gods, with all of these angels, so that we can step into a beautiful space, really from, I guess, 2023 onwards, you know. And so that's where I'm headed. That's what I would like to offer as an invitation to those beings on the planet who are listening to us right now and saying, yes, that's what I want, you know. So look at the details, get clear, send your arrow, and sit back and wait to see how it starts to unfold. But what's your final take on it all, Kelley? What would you like to offer?
Yeah, things are shaking up and the puzzle's just coming apart and the pieces are flying all over. So it's like, as we move on, find the pieces you want and make a new puzzle. That's the picture of your life. That's the vision. That's, you know, that's the new contracts, right? And,
you know, using the energies we've got, we can think in pictures, as me and you like to do, and to try and place them like that. But also, this is a time about expression, and we've got this wonderful energy of Venus and Mercury entering Sagittarius, where we can find a way to express ourselves, either through doing videos like this, or maybe drawing pictures, or maybe writing poetry, maybe making music, maybe singing and dancing is how we express ourselves, right? All important. And singing and dancing is also a great way to move the energies around and to shake off other maybe heavier frequencies that we've picked up from our wider terrains and environments. So I absolutely love doing the show with you, Kelley. I think it's so super interesting to get all of these higher octaves of the astrology, but also to see how we can work with them, because I think we both believe that these KBOs really represent the next evolution of astrology as we move into the new earth, and how we can start to work with the more nuanced, finer energies that these KBOs offer us, but still in conjunction with our old friends that we've known for many years, right?
Who bring it down home and, you know, close to us, right? The more personally. Yes. Yeah.
So as we come to the end of our little journey today, please do remind everybody listening again where they can find out more about your work, or even maybe book a session with you if they want to get their charts read.
Yeah, well, the best source is my website, heliastar.com, HELIASTAR, heliastar.com.
Right. And if people are interested to find out more about Black Moon Lilith, you also have both of your wonderful books available there, which I do highly recommend. And I feel there's a lot more to come from Black Moon Lilith as we open up this little Pandora's box that she's offered us with these alignment days. And I'm sure that's going to be something we'll come back to next year. But for now, Kelley, thank you so much again for your time. As always, I love these pieces that we do. And we'll see you all again next month for another Moons and Mythos. So make the most of this one, guys. It's a big opportunity to really get yourself set for how you want your new future to look. Ciao for now, everybody. Have fun. See you next time.
Bye.